Buenos días,
Good
buenas
morning,
tardes, buenas
good
noches,
afternoon, good evening,
camaradas, compañeras, compañeros,
comrades,
compañeres, colegas
everyone, colleagues
de todo el mundo.
from all over the
Nos
world.
reunimos hoy para
We are
conmemorar, celebrar
reuniting to celebrate
25 años de la
25
fundación
years
del
since
Movimiento
the
para
foundation
la
of
Salud de los
the
Pueblos.
People's Health Movement.
En días como hoy,
In days like this
en
one,
Savar, Bangladesh,
Savar,
de 4
Bangladesh,
al 8 de diciembre
from December
del año
4th to the
2000,
8th in year
estaba
2000.
teniendo lugar
Over
la
there, we were
asamblea
celebrating the
que
assembly
no solo dio origen al
that
movimiento
gave
de
birth
salud de los
to
pueblos,
the People's Health Movement,
sino que
but also
eh, hizo un profundo análisis de la
that
situación mundial de salud
came up with
que
a
se
deep analysis
presentaba
of the world
en ese
health
periodo,
situation at that
luego
moment.
de
After
años
years
de introducción en el
of
mundo a nivel global del modelo
the
neoliberal
introduction of the
capitalista de
neoliberal
desarrollo económico
capitalist
y social
um,
que había enterrado las
model in the world
esperanzas
that had buried the
creadas
hopes
por
that we had
las declaraciones de la Asamblea Mundial de la Salud
after the
orientadas a lograr salud
statements
para todos,
by
todas y
the
todos.
assembly that wanted
Y
to
había
reach health for all.
acordado la estrategia
And in that
para
at
hacer
that
posible
time, we
esa
came
meta
up with a
de
strategy
salud
to
para
achieve
todos,
this
todas y
goal of
todas
health
en
for
el año
all.
2000.
And this happened
La
in the year
atención primaria
2000.
integral de salud
Primary
fue el
healthcare
instrumento
was the
que
tool
pretendía, a
that
través de posibilitar, de vincularse
wanted
el desarrollo económico-social
by connected
y
to
cultural de los
social and economic
pueblos,
and cultural
al
development of
fortalecimiento
peoples,
de sistemas de
wanted
salud,
to strengthen
acción
the
sobre lo que hoy denominamos
health systems.
los determinantes sociales de la salud,
And this
eh,
was connected to what we call today the
buscaría,
social
como
determinants
digo,
of health.
propiciar el logro
And
de
the
la
idea
salud para
was
todos
to
en
achieve
el año
health for all
2000.
through primary
Pero
healthcare. And this is what
lo
we
que se
wanted
mostró en
to
el año
achieve
2000
in year
fue un empeoramiento
2000.
de la
But
salud
what
mundial
we saw at that
como
point was
consecuencia
that world
de
health was
la
worse than before.
profundización de la
And this was a
pobreza
consequence
y
of
de las
more poverty
desigualdades sociales.
and
Y ese
bigger
fue el análisis
inequalities. And that's what
que
we
esta Asamblea Mundial
saw
de
when
Salud,
we analyzed the
reunida en
situation.
Savar, en
And
Bangladesh,
this People's
tuvo
Health
como
Assembly
su
in
centro,
Savar, Bangladesh,
tuvo como
had
sus
at its
principales
core
preocupaciones. Activistas de todo el mundo se
different
reunieron
activists from all over
entonces
the
en
world
Savar
who met
y
in Savar,
evaluaron el impacto
and they
de la
analyzed the
globalización,
impact of globalization,
de las políticas de ajuste
the impact
económico
of the different
utilizadas
economic
por
tightening
el
that
capital financiero
were
internacional
happening in different
para
countries of the world
mm, obligar a los países
to
en
make
vías de desarrollo
countries,
a
especially
pagar la
developing
creciente
countries,
deuda
to
externa
pay
que
an
había flagecido
increasing
los presupuestos públicos para enfrentar
debt,
los problemas de salud del mundo.
and this debt made
Y
the
no solo eso,
resources
sino que en
to
ese periodo,
for
durante la
health to
década del
be
90,
smaller.
el
And
Banco
it
Mundial
did happened also
había
in
acordado una
the
política
90s. The World
a
Bank
través
had
del
this
informe
policy
Invertir en Salud
through
de
that appears
privatización
in
y
this Invest in Health
mercantilización de los sistemas de
document.
salud.
And basically, what it did
Todo
was to
con la
make
lógica
the health
de
systems
la
another product that could
financiarización
be
de
traded.
la economía mundial en el marco del modelo de
And
desarrollo
this
económico y
happened in the
social de
context
carácter neoliberal. Ese
of
fue
a
el desafío
neoliberal
que
economic and
enfrentaron estos
social
héroes y
um,
heroínas del movimiento para la salud de
paradigm.
los
And this is
pueblos
what these
y
heroes from the People's
que
Health Movement
buscaban
had to
salidas
deal with.
a la
They wanted to
profunda
find
crisis de
ways
la salud
out of
mundial,
this
ya no
deep
solo de la salud
crisis of world
humana,
health. It
sino
wasn't
también
only
de la
human
salud
health, but
planetaria.
actually
Eso fue
the
lo que
health of an
inició
entire
este
planet.
proceso.
So that
Y
was the
posteriormente,
starting point of
como
this
todos y
process
todas, todos sabemos,
that then, as we all know,
ha sido validado
This
a
has been
través de los años
validated over
por
the
las
years
distintas asambleas
with all
mundiales
the
del
different
Movimiento de Salud de
assemblies
los
that we
Pueblos,
have celebrated,
con las distintas actividades de
with the
los
different
programas mundiales
activities
del movimiento,
and also of
de las
the different
acciones,
programs that we have all over the
de las
world as a
coordinaciones
movement,
de los círculos
and
de
the
país
actions of
de los
the country
círculos
circles
temáticos que
and
fueron
thematic
emergiendo en la
circles.
historia para ir
All
enfrentando
of these were
no solo los
created to
desafíos que
face
dieron origen
not
a
only
la
the
fundación del
original
Movimiento de Salud de los
challenges
Pueblos, sino
that gave
todos
birth
aquellos
to
que
the People's
hemos
Health Movement,
venido
but also all
viviendo
the other
en el
challenges that we
marco
have been facing
de el desarrollo de la decadencia del
in
capitalismo
the
mundial,
context
del agravamiento de las crisis
um,
económicas, de las
of this
desigualdades
crisis
sociales, del
of capitalism,
empobrecimiento de los
extreme
pueblos y de la
poverty of the
destrucción
peoples,
progresiva
and
de la naturaleza.
also the progressive
Este es el
destruction of
movimiento
nature. So this is the
que,
movement
reuniendo el activismo de salud mundial
that
desde los ámbitos
puts
académicos,
together
desde las comunidades
health
de base,
activism from
desde las
academia and grassroots
organizaciones de
groups
salud de todo tipo,
and health
enfrentar
organizations
este
of all kinds,
desafío que
all of them
aún no
face
termina,
this
para lo
challenge
cual
that
el
has
movimiento de salud de los
not
pueblos, luego de
finished. It's still
25
there.
años de
So the People's
existencia,
Health Movement,
que
after
han
25
significado
years
enormes luchas en cada país,
of
en
great
otras ciudades,
struggles in
a
every
escala
country,
planetaria,
in different
continúa
regions,
enfrentando, continúa
we continue facing
vigente,
these
porque
challenges,
hoy las
and
luchas tienen
our
otro carácter.
our struggles are
El
still
movimiento tuvo la
valid.
previsión de decir,
The
no
movement
podrá haber salud
said
para todos,
that we
todas
won't
y
be able to
todos,
have health for all
sin que enfrentemos
unless
el
we
capitalismo,
face
sin que
capitalism,
creemos un
unless
nuevo
we
orden de
create a
desarrollo
new
económico y mundial,
development and
más
economic
equitativo,
model for this
más
planet that
progresivo,
is
y sin que
more
enfrentemos
equal
los
and is more
desafíos
progressive. And
imperialistas
also, we
que
need
hoy
to
se han
also face
multiplicado y
imperialist
son mucho más agresivos
interests,
en distintas
which
regiones del
today have
mundo.
multiplied and are
Comprenderás
much more
entonces
aggressive in
cómo
many parts of the
la
world. So we
soberanía
are talking
alimentaria,
about, for
la
example, food
paz
sovereignty,
mundial,
world
el
peace,
fortalecimiento
the
de
strengthening
sistemas de salud
of
universales, públicos y
universal health
equitativos,
systems
la
that are
justicia de
public
género y
and
salud,
strive
entre
for
otros
equality,
aspectos, los
among many
debates
other
en el
things,
seno de la
are some
Asamblea
of the things
Mundial de Salud de la Organización
that
Mundial de
we
la Salud
debate,
y otras instituciones
and also other
del
topics that are
multilateralismo,
debated by
todos
the
esos
WHO and
espacios
other
y todos esos
organizations, world
procesos
organizations.
son los que el movimiento de salud
All
de los
those
pueblos
spaces
ha
and
venido
all these actions,
confrontando y
we are trying
continuará
to face
confrontando
all
con la
those
fortaleza, la
spaces, and we will
unidad
continue to do
y la
so
claridad de
with the
visión
strength,
que ha
the
caracterizado
clarity of vision
este
that has
proceso mundial
always
de lucha, no
characterized
solo
this
por el derecho a la
world
salud, sino por la transformación del
activism,
sistema económico, social y
which is
político
not
que
only
sustenta
about
la
health,
base
but
de la
also
salud
an
mundial.
entire economic
Quiero
and social
entonces
model.
invitar a todas las
So I
compañeras y
want to
compañeros
invite all the
presentes
comrades
en esta
here
celebración que nos
to
llena de
invite you all to
orgullo
join us
y
in this
nos llena de
celebration that makes
energía
us
y
so
de
proud,
esperanza,
gives us energy,
para que
and
nos
gives us hope,
reconozcamos
so that
y los
we
que hemos sido en nuestra
see
historia.
each other
Para ello hemos
and see
dispuesto
ourselves in what
varias
we've done in our
actividades,
history.
tres
So to do so, we
fundamentalmente.
have
La primera
big
de
some
ellas
activities,
ojalá
three
que
mostly.
hayamos
The
podido
first one,
resolver los
um,
problemas
I hope
técnicos.
that we were able to
Será la
overcome the
presentación
technical
de algunos
issues.
videos
We're going
de
to show you some
informaciones
videos from
a
different
través de los cuales
regions,
pretendemos ilustrar
and the idea
alguna
is to
pequeña muestra de
show
la lucha. Hay muchas
um,
otras
the
actividades que han sido
different activities
desarrolladas por
that we
nuestros
have been
compañeros,
doing. There
compañeras
are
que
many other
no
activities
podremos presentar
that perhaps
hoy,
we cannot
pero que han sido
show
parte de este
today,
proceso
but they have been
celebratorio.
part of this process
También,
that we are
y
celebrating
esto es muy
today.
importante,
And
un panel
in
en el
addition,
cual
we have a panel, and this is very
compañeros
important. We
y
will have different
compañeras
comrades
se referirán a las otras
who will
actividades del
talk
movimiento
about
y
the
su
current
definición.
challenges of
Este
the
panel será
movement.
coordinado
So this
por
panel will
nuestros
be
compañeras y
moderated by
compañeros Wim de
our
Kiekeler
comrades
y
Wim de
Sinamhana.
Kukeler
Y
and
además
Tinmhana.
de eso, al
And
final de
then
este
we
evento
will
y
also
esta
have
gran
at the
día de hoy,
end of this glorious
nuestra
event
compañera
today,
María Hamlin,
Maria Hamlin
hará la coordinación
will
del
coordinate
espacio en el cual
a space
honraremos la
where
memoria
we will pay
de
homage,
de los
to
fundadores más
many of the
fundadores del
founders
movimiento
of
para
the
la salud
People's
de los
Health
pueblos.
Movement.
Algunos de ellos
Some of
ya
them
muertos, pero
have
otros
passed away, but
con la
others,
fortaleza de seguir
with
luchando a
the
través
strength that they
del
have in their
activismo. Ejemplo,
activism,
para
they
todos
are
los que somos
still
parte del
working
movimiento
towards
para la
our
salud
goals.
de los pueblos. Invito entonces
So
a
then,
que nos
I
unamos
invite you
en este
all.
día
So we'll go ahead with the panel.
Yes.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues and fellow activists and comrades in the struggle joining us from around the world. It is my pleasure to open today's panel on the People's Health Movement's 25-year anniversary. Since its founding in 2000, and some of you were present at that time, since its founding, the PHM has brought together grassroots health activists, academics, policymakers from 6 continents to champion the simple and profound principle that health is a human right for all. Over the past quarter century, we have witnessed remarkable victories, both at the local and the international level. But also we have experienced setbacks as political winds have shifted. And today's program reflects that dual reality. We will hear a brief historical perspective from David Legge, followed by a dynamic 3-round panel discussion that will be animated by Zaina Mohana and myself. In each round, our speakers and fellow activists will address 3 guiding questions. And that is, in the first place, we want to look back on the most significant experiences, victories, and lessons of the past 25 years. Consequently, we are going to discuss current challenges, how the political and international health landscape has changed, the human rights discourse has been undermined, and how the role of social movements has evolved. We'd also like to discuss whether the multilateral venues we have been using to advocate for health rights, like WHO and UN, whether they are still relevant, or whether we have to explore other instruments. And then the third round will be looking forward, how to strengthen PHM's collective voice, solidarity mechanisms, and internationalist commitments. What actions, campaigns, and collaborations we should pursue moving forward. And our panel consists of Fran, we know from Australia, Abhay from India, Lauren from South Africa, Juliet from the Netherlands, and Ubay from Palestine. And each of those panelists will have a couple of minutes per round, but we will leave also room for interaction and an exchange of ideas. But before we dive into those rich conversations, I'd like to introduce David Legge, who has always been one of the movement's mentors on the topic of political economy and the political currents that frame health rights worldwide. David is a physician turned health policy scholar turned health activist who has spent decades examining the intersection of politics, economics, and the right to health. And in today's talk, David will trace how the international policy context has evolved since the PHM's inception in December 2000. His overview will set the stage for our panelists to explore both the achievements we celebrate and the emerging challenges we must confront. So I would like to ask you to give a very warm but virtual welcome to David Legge. So David, you have the floor.
Thank you, Wim, and thank you to PHM for a wonderful opportunity to participate in this really exciting event. Can I start by sharing a screen? Is that I hope you can see this screen. Is that visible? Yeah.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so here is a picture of what we've done for the last 25 years. Over here we've got the Charter, the Quanker Declaration from 2005. Down here is Cape Town in 2012. Again back to Savar in 2018, and then last year in Mar del Plata. And then all the activities that have been going on. There's something wonderful here to be celebrated, I think. I'm looking at Global Health Watch 7 over here, 110 issues of People's Health Dispatch, the long work of PHM Exchange, the IPHUs, and the WHO Watch team. And these are just the global programs. It doesn't speak about the amazing work which has been undertaken at the country level. So what I'd like to do is to talk about changing context in terms of 5 broad areas. In some respects, the context hasn't changed all that much, but in other respects, it's quite important to identify some differences. So under the heading of social determination of people's health, the challenges of poverty, precarious employment inequality, and alienation of people from each other, from the earth, from their own agency and from their own creativity. These are problems which remain. And the lack of government expenditure on social infrastructure. Then in terms of health prospects, the lack of public health funding, the continued pressure for privatisation and marketisation, they are standard. But this whole process of financialisation and the globalisation of private healthcare providers is relatively new, and we need to think about how we're responding to that. And then, of course, the continuing flow of new treatments and new diagnostics and new inequities in access. New technologies are also threatening to change things, and we need to work out why and how. One of them is cross-border healthcare, which needs to be thought through. I'm not going to do so today, but it's going to be a key issue, as well as new forms of stratified access or denial of access. But I'd like to also highlight the role of Taylorism in healthcare management, which is going to be intensified by the new technologies, which again is going to change the fields in which we work. Under the heading of cultural and environmental trends, clearly global heating is a dominating issue, with the disasters, the migration, the conflict which is going to flow from that. And with those come other more familiar issues, the escalating extractivism, but the impact of new technologies, including which are going to change the world in which we're working. I want to highlight the divide and conquer dynamic on this slide, including the rise of fascism and the fascism which rises from alienation and grievance, but also the role of various oppressions across gender, across race and religion, and the ways in which they divide people and present and weaken our resistance to imperialism. Under the heading of geopolitics, we've moved from European colonialism of theft and slavery to US neo-colonialism, which was all about unequal exchange imposed by imperial force, through the WTO period of the so-called rules-based order, which was neoliberal multilateralism, and how we are moving to a return to the bilateral bullying and of Trump. But what's different now is the rising of multipolar resistance. And just by way of illustrating that, I mention the rejuvenation of the G77, the non-aligned movement, the BRICS Plus, and the recent G19 statement where 19 members of the G20 said that it didn't matter if the Americans didn't come to the G20, they'd produce their statement anyway. So there is a multipolar movement happening which we need to work with. Imperialism is not going to accept that without a struggle. And as Pope Francis said some years ago, World War III is being waged piece by piece. Palestine, Venezuela, Ukraine, wherever. So finally, I want to focus on the changing dynamics of transnational capitalism, which has moved from the naked looting of colonialism to the long boom after the Second World War, to the 1980s debt crisis, through to a period of financialization where the financial system dominates the way capitalism works. And we have a new and deepening debt crisis as a consequence of the increasing greed of the financial system. PHM needs to be confronting the dynamics which underpin the inequality, and the imperialism that we've talked about. And I want to highlight underconsumptionism, the fact that capitalism is generating more capital than it can invest. And that capital is flowing into the financial system, which is flowing into debt, which is flowing into new forms of expropriation. We need to understand the deepening of unequal exchange under the liberalisation of trade and finance. But there is also resistance, and we need to continue to work out what a new international economic order would mean. And I would be returning to Sami Amin's concept of delinking, which is about weakening the bonds of imperialism. And that's happening. The Belt and Road Initiative, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the decline of dollar denomination with central bank currencies are all small signs of a resistance to US-dominated capitalism, as well as the resistance to extractivism. So what do I get from reflecting through this history of what we've been doing? I want to highlight some of the strategic principles which came out of Mar del Plata. Popular mobilisation, reaching across marginalised constituencies, reaching across difference, building solidarity and liberation. Convergence, new and deeper alliances with other social movements, including labour unions and left political parties, including the Nailini process that we've been part of. Working with progressive governments to resist imperialism. Working at the national level to resist domestic capital and the domestic incursions of transnational capitalism. And the capacity building that is needed to make those things happen. So I then go back to our core documents. And to be honest, our analysis has not changed all that much. Capitalism is destroying civilization, is degrading nature. Imperialism can be overcome. Eco-socialism is possible and necessary and it would bring decent jobs, fair societies, free time, eco-harmony and living well. But what has changed since December 2000 is that PHM has been much more explicit in this narrative about capitalism, about imperialism, and about an eco-socialist alternative. Because if we are going to build a process of mobilisation, we need to be clearer about our critique, the critique of capitalism. We need to be clearer about what kind of world we're talking about building. If we're going to build a convergence with other social movements, we need to explain more clearly why we see capitalism as such a critical structure to be confronted, and why an eco-socialist world is both possible and necessary. Likewise, if we're working with governments, we need to be clear. So I guess what I'd like to leave for the panel to consider is that our analysis and our broad strategy remain pretty strong from 2000 onwards and have been reinforced repeatedly. But maybe we need to be more explicit in offering an alternative, a stronger, clearer critique of what we're confronting, and a more exciting vision, a more explicit, clearer vision of what we are working towards. I think I might leave it there. Thank you, Wim.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for your word of wisdom and for inspiring talks. You always take us to new horizons and really highlight the main key issues that have been undergone under the PHM. Thanks a lot for your intervention and for your long commitment. After 25 years of PHM, I think having this jubilee is already a big achievement for the value of this platform, of this movement that is one of a kind in this world, especially nowadays, where we're speaking about increased fascism, imperialism, where humanity is going backwards, where the international law is being put into question. Having a PHM in all the continents of the world is not something to be taken lightly. It's something to be estimated and strengthened. And where we're taking today to really highlight what are the key issues that we have been achieving together. PHM have been highlighting key topics that Roman also spoke in his intervention: food sovereignty, social determinants of health, public health approach, etc. We know the Middle East is in turmoil, many countries are being challenged, but we should stand by our values and our directives to push forward for justice and humanity. We're going to take this opportunity to have the interventions of our key comrades from all over the world to hear about their words of wisdom and hear about their experiences in PHM. We will start with Fran Baum from Australia, who is one of the founders of PHM, and very grateful to hear from you. If we look back to these 25 years, what, according to you and your experience, has been the most significant victories of the past, success stories, lessons learned, or the key highlights that if you look back at it and say, yes, we did something, we're very proud of what we have achieved, and we should continue our efforts forward. The floor is yours, Fran.
Thanks so much, Zaina, and hi everybody. It's late in Adelaide. It's getting on for midnight, but it's lovely to see everybody. I think we've achieved so much, and in a world that's getting much, much more difficult. I was thinking that when we all gathered, like 25 years ago today, many of us were in maybe people could show a heart if they were actually in Savar in Bangladesh at the First People's Health Assembly. if you were there, please show a heart up on the system. And of course, that meeting brought together and produced our fantastic People's Health Charter. And when you read that and go back and read it, and it still stands the test of time, which is fantastic, I think. So that's one really important thing. And it brought together 8 networks, one of which was the International People's Health Council, which Maria has really been the great coordinator of. And what I think the People's Health Council brought to PHM was a real commitment to the slogan, the struggle for health is a struggle for liberation, and seeing how health was tied up with liberation from colonialism, basically, from imperialism. And as IPHU in 1992, we met in Palestine. And I think that brought through to the People's Health Movement a long commitment to Palestine, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that. The other thing, of course, is all our fallen comrades. They're also crucial, and I think we're going to hear about them later. Of course, David Sanders, Zafrullah, Prem John, Mayer, Dr. Bala, Amit Sen, Mas Babato, just a couple of weeks ago. That, there's so many people who have come to the movement. And for me, one of our victories has been David's laid out our political position. And what I love about PHM is when we get together, we share that position and we argue about it, but we start from a progressive position. And that seems to me to be getting increasingly rare. So I think that's a really fantastic victory that we've had. Of course, we've produced the International People's Health Unit University has put through thousands of people have at least been exposed to our ideas. We have the Global Health Watch, which, is now used quite widely. We've just published the 7th edition and it's going strong. And, the other thing is we do all this on a shoestring. We don't have lots of money. We really work through volunteer effort and hardly any money. So I think that's important. And the other wonderful thing is the assemblies. I've had the privilege to go to every People's Health Assembly, and they are just so inspiring. And I hope we hear about, I know the next one's being planned in Morocco. But Zainu, I think I had 3 minutes, so I better stop there and pass on. Okay.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you so much for the wealth of information you have shared, and especially being from the beginning. So we tapped into the People Health Charter, the struggle for health, for liberation, the network for the International People Health Council, the visit to Palestine, International People Health Global Watch, and the assembly, especially on a tight budget, but achieving a lot. And I really echo and second how much really the PHM groups is quite a very serious, tedious, and hardworking, committed group in every single international platform, taking every suggestion at heart and really pushing it forwards. And this commitment is definitely to be highlighted. We're going to jump now to India with our dear comrade Abhay Shukla, also to hear about your wonderful insights about the significant experiences, victories, success stories, or lessons learned that were done from your end. Please, the floor is yours, Abhay.
Thanks a lot, Zena, and thanks, and great to meet all of the PHM comrades online today as we share this milestone of 25 years of the People's Health Movement. And also many of my colleagues from PHM India, Jan Swasthya Abhiyan, are there on the call, and many others are not there on the call, but they have all been part of this wonderful journey. So whatever I'm going to say is actually very brief attempt to reflect on a few of our key actions, which have been a huge collective effort by all of our colleagues. So I'll just flag the 3 experiences which I feel are quite notable. The first is the Right to Healthcare campaign, which we had in India in 2003-2004 in collaboration with the National Human Rights Commission, where we organized a series of public hearings across India with the Human Rights Commission, claiming that health is a human right and that denial of healthcare in public health facilities is a serious human rights violation, and therefore action needs to be taken to strengthen public health systems. And that fed into the process of formulation of the National Rural Health Mission, which was an official process at that time, but so many of us intervened in that, contributed to that. And after that, as a continuation of the health rights discourse and the health rights strategies that we had developed, including public hearings. Then we had the community-based monitoring and planning process, which is implemented in around 9 states across India. And in the state where I'm based, that is Maharashtra alone, we organized more than 700 public hearings on health rights just in a few years, where in these public hearings, major issues were raised and also often resolved based on people's pressure and mobilization to claim health rights. So I think this is a reasonably significant series of interventions from the right to healthcare campaign to the community-based monitoring and planning process, which continued until there was a certain political space. The second I would like to flag is struggles against privatization of healthcare, which have been going on from time to time across different parts of India. In Rajasthan, against privatization of primary health centers, in Chhattisgarh, against privatization of laboratory services, also sporadically in a few other places. And now, in the last, I would say, roughly 1 year or so, now we have multiple such struggles going on in Andhra Pradesh, in Karnataka, in the city of Mumbai, in Madhya Pradesh, in a tribal area of Gujarat, and also in certain other places. So it's quite remarkable how there is now I would say a resurgence of struggles against privatization of healthcare, which is quite significant. And the third I would very briefly flag is about during COVID, when private hospitals were grossly overcharging patients because of complete lack of regulation. There, due to the efforts at least in Maharashtra of Jan Arogya Abhiyan, the People's Health Movement in Maharashtra, we were able to force the government to audit private hospital bills and to reclaim excess charge amounts from private hospitals in hundreds of thousands of rupees, which is something quite remarkable. And of course, our national health assemblies in the year 2000 in Kolkata, in the year 2007 in Bhopal, in the year 2018 in Raipur, have all been remarkable events where over 1,500 to up to 2,000 health activists from across India have come together, and we have recharged ourselves. And now our next step is next week, as you might be knowing, on 11th and 12th of December, we are organizing a national convention on health rights in Delhi, in the national capital, during the parliament session. And despite the very difficult political situation in India today, I would say there's a lot of energy that we are regaining and bringing together in this national convention on health rights. So these are just a few highlights. There's a lot more which could be shared by my other colleagues also. And I really hope that you'll see the video which we have prepared, which we could not see, which gives you in a much more dramatic and much more interesting way what I have just said in a few words. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Abai. Thank you so much for highlighting the Rights to Healthcare campaigning with Human Rights Commission, where human rights is a human rights, the public hearing on health rights, struggle against privatization, especially for primary health care, and the national health assemblies that were key to push forward. Thanks a lot for your very valuable intervention. Jumping now to South Africa, to our dear Lauren Paramore, to hear also what has happened from this side, from significant experiences, past stories, success stories, and lessons learned. Please, Lauren, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Zaina, and greetings to everyone. So in preparing for this, I thought, let me speak from the perspective of the work I've been most extensively involved with in the past couple of years, which is the Democratizing Global Health Governance program, along with other comrades. And I think one of the things that's important to me about that program is that it's really succeeded in bringing younger activists, a new generation of activists into the movement, and many of them actually are on the call. Juliet, who you'll hear from in just a moment, is one of the people, along with Sarai Kestra, who actually started a new PHM chapter in the Netherlands recently. So I think if we think about movement building and the watch, there are complications with running the program, but I think it has been tremendously successful in energizing the movement and also in introducing comrades that join the watch, but whoever is present in that strange world of global health, to the idea that really we should focus on health and not illness, because so often that conversation is about managing illness and the medicalization of health. And I think PHM really brings a political economy perspective that deals more directly with power, including power is exercised through colonialism, imperialism, racism, capitalism, and sexism. And I think that analysis has maybe benefited from the fact that PHM has sometimes been stretched for money and for resources. And so in that sense, it's not been a movement that's become professionalized as an NGO. I think in many ways, the lack of resources has given the movement freedom to operate and to articulate its ideas on its own terms. And so I think that's the second big success that I would, or lesson learned that I would point to. And then I think the third thing to flag very briefly is that David kind of tabled a challenge, which is to put forward a different vision, a clearer expression of alternatives. And so one of the things that I'd like to highlight in that regard is the public farmer program that Alan, Sarah, the two Davids, Jan, Marta, have been championing for the past maybe 2.5 years. And I think what's significant about that is in a context where health is becoming highly financialized, let alone commodified, as David described, really this is a provocation to think about pharmaceutical manufacturing as something that should be state-owned and controlled. And I think it's an idea that, strangely enough, one might say, given the conservatism of the pharmaceutical industry, has resonated with many activists also outside of PHM. And so I think I really just think that's one example of a vision that PHM has contributed to building. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. So nice to see that you're seeing the lack of resources as an opportunity for the freedom of the movement. Very beautifully highlighted. In every thread, there is an opportunity. So, but yeah, definitely second your positive and constructive approach of seeing this, and definitely so true. Democratizing public health program, IPHM chapter in the Netherlands focusing on health and not illness, the political economy perspective that power is exercised in imperialism and sexism and other. And also you spoke about the public pharma has been really a great initiative. Thanks a lot for your extremely valuable component. We're gonna move now to Europe with our dear Juliette Matisken, based in the Netherlands, to hear from her about all the wonderful activism conducted there with all the comrades. Juliette has been a bubble of energy in Europe and crossing all the regions. Please, Juliette, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Zaina, for all of you being here. It's really, really an honor to be part of this celebration of 25 years. Just as Lauren did, I was thinking about what my different angle might be in the panel, and I think I stand here as a kind of second generation people's health movement activist. I came in just after David Sanders and Amit Singh Gupta passed away. And I think, I mean, you can much more share the victories of the movement than me, because I am here for 2 years. But I think one of the victories for sure is that we are here today, and that we are voicing into the needs of a new generation of activists that desperately needs the story of PHM, and I am one of those activists. So I came to the Global Health to the Watch in 2023, and I was angry at the world, and I had a lot of energy, and I was already an activist, but I was lacking the narrative on health, and I felt so alone where I was, and I didn't know what to do. I thought, am I crazy? Am I the one that doesn't see it right? And I remember I joined into a room, and you were talking about the Global Health Watch 6, and you were talking about, I don't know, anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism. You were talking about reform or revolution, and I felt like, okay, I feel at home. I found a place where I can dedicate my life to, and I think it's a movement that's actually maybe one of the most important things that is out there. Is not only that you have the right ideas and that in the current moment that you can do actions and struggle for liberation, but that you also that it should be something that's greater than ourselves and greater than your own generation, and that you're able to pass it on. So that's what PHM has done for me. That's also what I recognize within my generation, which I've met in Argentina, which I've met in Thessaloniki, in Kandy, in Geneva, and we all found a place there where we can strengthen our voice and grow our courage, so that when we're back home, we can stand up to the world. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And a second, more personal thing, I think as well, what I really appreciate in the movement, and again, thinking of something that other people might not say, is that I think being an activist in itself is extremely valuable, because we are doing something meaningful with our lives, and it's rewarding in itself, because you're working on something that life is about. You're working with wonderful people, but sometimes it's also hard, and it's devastating, because you witness the horrors of the world and you feel them as horrors, and you lose your friends maybe along, or you get harmed along the way. And what I also feel in this moment is that we acknowledge that, and we remember those who struggled before us. And that feels for me that I become part of of a family in a way that shares this gratitude, and that does not forget everyone that contributed to it, because we are not one, we are a lot of people that are struggling for health. And we keep on repeating that. So taking care of each other is for me key. It's like if we have to also change the world within our own relations. And I think that is what I always met with PHM comrades, and I'm very grateful for that. So being here today, having a strong counter narrative, and being able to carry the struggle across generation, I think is a huge achievement.
Thank you, Juliette. Thank you so much for a very inspiring talk. We had goosebumps and almost tears on the way. I think you're giving really a lot of strength to everybody, but also to highlight how much really PHM having a second generation now is showing how much this movement should continue, how much we should really stick by our values, even if the world is moving against humanity, normalizing killing children, getting away from justice and the fair causes of solidarity. We should stay united, put our hands together, and move forward towards the values and the directives that this movement calls for, and go back to humanity, equality, justice, and a better world forward where everyone counts. So thanks a lot. And also, I think you highlighted a key important issue, that we should always work in teams, that we should always, whatever we are in this world, be united on the common denominator that allow us to move forward on this movement, but also to move on the agendas of health and public health, and hopefully for a better world forward. Thanks a lot, Juliette. From here, we're going to Palestine. Our dear Obay Aboudi from Bisan, who are, unfortunately, they're struggling a lot. I think Obay has a lot to say. Obay has been extremely active, vibrant member who has provided a lot of cooperation, especially with Viva Salud, WIM, and everybody. And really big salute to your resistance and your struggles. And we can't wait to hear about what do you believe, despite all the challenges that you're facing in Palestine, what are the significant experiences, the success stories, and the lessons learned according to you? The floor is yours, Ubay.
Oh, thank you. And I would like first to echo Juliet, also I see myself as a second generation PHM. So it's always good to have social movements, have newer generations coming. I think this is a sign that the movement is growing and is mobilizing also for the future. In Palestine, in the ongoing genocide, but before the genocide, even the continuous repression and ethnic cleansing, PHM has been, with its values and principles, also a guiding voice on how to promote the right to health in a settler colonial context. From the arrest of the lead on PHM for Palestine and the region, our dear Shada Ode, who was an instrumental voice in trying to mobilize and organize people's health movement on national and regional levels as a movement for justice, as a movement that talks about the social determinants of health and puts colonialism as one of the major determinants of why people in Palestine are not enjoying their right to health. through the ongoing genocide, where our organizations, especially in Gaza, from Palestinian health relief committees and Al Auda, have had their facilities targeted, their doctors kidnapped, including Dr. Mhanna, who was released after enduring unimaginable torture in Israeli concentration camps, and the ongoing genocide and attacks and total destruction of the health sector in Gaza, where doctors were able to steadfast through the support that they got from international solidarity, and also through sheer will to stand up in face of the repression that's happening against them, doctors and health workers, of course, nurses, health professionals, everyone. As health activists, we saw the PHM also in its conference, General Assembly in Argentina, also have Palestine as a main theme, where awareness on what's happening in Palestine, attacks on the health sector, actually were very instrumental in spreading this kind of understanding locally and internationally, and also the work that PHM Solidarity has done through the flotilla trying to break the siege, where a number of PHM activists came and risked their lives, risked everything in trying to break the siege in Gaza, and got arrested, detained, and harassed by the Israeli occupation forces. For us, we see PHM not just in past actions, but we also see it in as a future hope, as a rallying call, as a way to organize also together. We understand that the challenges we are facing as Palestinians, especially under this genocidal settler colonial regime that we're living under, are also the challenges that many in our region are facing because of this regime, whether it was in Lebanon, in Syria, all over. We are seeing increased attacks also on health professionals, health facilities, and we understand that these kinds of attacks will not stop unless the idea to decolonize becomes also a driving force for every social movement globally. And PHM, fortunately, the presence or the contradictions between colonialism and capitalism and the basic rights of people are, I think, an area that is well understood and well reflected with all of the literature of the people's health.
Thank you, Obai. Thank you so much. Really, you highlighted a key issue that also builds on Lauren's point that we don't need resources to be next to each other. The solidarity means a lot and gives us strength to move forward for justice. Palestine has been going in a lot of challenges, and thanks, you highlighted challenges also in the Middle East, Lebanon, Sudan, Syria, all the regions that are struggling and that fall for this support. You highlighted a key component that PHM has been here for the basic rights, but also as future hope. So, and this is where also it's a hope for the new generation and hope for a better world forward. I want to thank a lot the panelists for very valuable input. I will pass to Wim for the second round of questions to take forward our second part of this panel. Wim, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Zaina. And I just realized actually that we cannot do justice to the wealth of our experiences and victories in such a short time. So we'll go back to the panel and discuss now current challenges, because we're also exploring to what extent social movements like the People's Health Movement today are still relevant. And I think in the introduction of David, we already found some elements because he talked about opportunities, changing opportunities, emerging opportunities, but also new challenges. So I would like to go back to our panelists and ask them one by one to comment on these. Who is going to go first? So shall we start now with Juliette?
I was hoping it was not going to be me, but I can start. So I saw it a bit as a question, kind of what may have changed over the last couple of years. So I have some, and like what we will do next, I will do it later. But I think, and I'm also speaking from a European perspective, I think that's important also to mention. But I think what we see now in Europe is like this increasing and out there phase of also US hegemony, which is very clear about the want to go to war, and how European powers kind of embrace, well, for example, the NATO norm. In the Netherlands, what we see is we are getting letters by the government that tell us to prepare for war and how we should like create a package to survive for 3 days. And why is it relevant is because the population, there's very little resistance about this war narrative. It's like really mainstream in parliament. There's no party in the Netherlands, at least, that is countering this voice. The left that is working on it is super scattered. So when the NATO summit came to the Netherlands in June 2025, we had 5 anti-NATO summits, each having a different opinion about it. So what I also see is, one, the militarization narrative and the imperialism is getting more outspoken, and two, that we're struggling in a way to counter it. At least some parts of the world, we struggle to have one united voice to say, no, this cannot be happening. Peace is actually possible, to dismantle the narrative. The second thing I think is also different is that owning kind of the means of communication. So the platform through which we mobilize also our activists are owned by big private technological giants, to which we are also giving our data to. And thirdly, but I think for big parts of the world this is not new, is that what we see is also increasingly oppression of activists and violence towards activists. And then also the question you asked was also about the hope we had or not in the UN. So I think what I feel as from this generation is that that's what the last couple of years, what we have seen is also well, very much hesitancy about the power of the UN when we follow what happened in Gaza for 2 years, when we see what happens with each climate summit, where it took us like 25 years to even name the fossil fuels, when we see how difficult it is to have actual consequences to speak there. So I'm not sure if, as a global movement, that I don't think the real change is going to come from the UN, but what I do think it's important to follow up on what's happening there and to explain what is happening there, so that we can offer that counter narrative. And real change will always be from the ground, from the local, from the hyper local. An example from the hyper local is the encampments that we see from students all over the world that connect their struggle, their local struggle, to the Palestinian struggle, to the struggle in many other places in the world, to the militarization. And that's, I think, my hope as well, is the next generation. And one other thing I wanted to mention as well is I feel there's a lot of individualization. We are really put, the bigger narrative out there for us is, you are alone, you cannot make a change in the world, you don't feel so much connected. That has also to do a lot with social media, and I think the power of the movement is actually to feel that connection again. And what I see on a very local level always makes me hopeful, because people, they want to resist, they want to have joyful, healthy lives, and they come together and they care for each other when governments always fail to do so. So I think these are big challenges ahead, but that is only reaffirms the need for us to be there, because I think on the narrative we are very, very, very clear, and sometimes on the action, and that's what we will talk about next, section, we have to think about how to challenge power. But our narrative is necessary and unique, and especially when it comes to health. And last, small words on the next generation. That's also something that gives me hope, because this is, I think, from the Black Lives Matters protest on, we have been on the streets for a lot of issues: housing, Black Lives Matter, Palestine, Sudan, Congo, you name it. Young people all around the world are risking their lives. We see in Morocco how Gen Z has spoken out. We see it in Nepal. We see it in Bangladesh. And so I think that's a huge opportunity also, and that we must connect these local young movements that have fire and that don't accept the world as it is. And that's a huge opportunity ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Juliette. I hope someone is taking notes. Or no, actually, we have the recording anyway. But it's right, as David said, the narrative is still very much relevant. We have to be more explicit. That's what David said, actually. And you're right also to underscore the importance of grassroots mobilizations and the changing nature of those multilateral institutions that we have we have been trying to address, the UN, WHO. And I also gathered the idea that militarization is indeed, and as I'm also living in Europe, I can relate to that it's been a very important new area that with PHM Europe, for example, we're starting to work on, isn't it? No, that's wonderful. So new challenges, but with a narrative that's still very much relevant and underscored by grassroots mobilization. So let's do ladies first. So Fran or Lauren, who wants to go first?
You go, Lauren.
Okay, so I think one element of the question as it was put to us was about multilateralism and whether there's any, I suppose, hope in pursuing that course of action. And so I think that's a challenge to be able to answer that question. I'm not certain what the answer is. One of the things that gives me hope about the multilateral space is that I think we're seeing for the first time in a long time coordinated action by Southern blocs, so the G77 and the Africa Group, for example. In the UN General Assembly, we see the UN framework on a tax convention, which is really important because it's connected to so many issues, including the inability of our countries to spend on health, and then depending on these kind of bilateral programs, which expose governments to political pressure. So we can see that now with the US defunding. At the World Health Organization, I think there were significant victories in amending the international health regulations, including financing for pandemic preparedness, and also creating a structure where member states can actually control what happens in terms of interpreting the IHR regulations. So I think there are initiatives. I think the other initiative that's interesting in the multilateral system is Colombia, supported by India and South Africa, have asked for an audit of the TRIPS regulations and whether actually they contribute to all these good things that the preamble of the WTO constitution promises, and including a request for an assessment of how actually the South subsidizes the North through royalty payments for IP. So I think those initiatives are good. They should be supported. There's the Hague Group and the broader kind of organizing around the Progressive International that's trying to think about how governments from the South can act in solidarity and leverage the multilateral system to establish new obligations. I think the challenge, and others have alluded to this in the chat, but also the other speakers, is that our governments are fragmented spaces, right? So there is no such thing as a state. They might do one thing on the international stage and very different things on the national level. And so I think that's part of the complexity. So, for example, South Africa is very progressive on Palestine, but domestically there's big support for regressive causes like extractivism, remaining dependent on fossil fuels. There are profound problems with xenophobia, including blocking people perceived as non-nationals from accessing healthcare facilities. So this is all the South African state. This is just one example, but it's not clear really what it means to say we should support our governments or oppose our governments, because they themselves are fragmented spaces. And I think that's a challenge also. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. That's very enlightening. So it shows indeed also something that David mentioned, that there are some opportunities in the unity of some countries from the south taking progressive positions, but at the same time, you also explained that this should not distract us from the fact that some of these governments also have domestically, even if they take progressive positions at the global level, that domestically they can choose very different policies as well, and oppressive and exploitative policies as well. Okay, thank you. Fran, your turn. Where do you see the current challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Wim. Well, I think every day we're hearing, whether it's from Gaza, whether it's from the US, whether it's from other kind of proto-fascist states, we're hearing worse and worse things. And in some ways, I think that's making us much easier to be explicit. I think people are talking more openly about a critique of capitalism, of imperialism. I mean, Indigenous people in Australia have always, of course, talked about colonialism, but that's much more prevalent now in the discourse. So I think that opens up a window. I think people, the wealth inequities are just becoming worse and worse. We keep hearing the top 10 own as much as the bottom sort of 60% and so on. And I think all that opens some doors to a far more critical political economy analysis, which is good. But, what really scares me are the actions of these private equity firms, which are investing wherever they can to extract more profit. And it's a sort of different form of extraction going on. It's just sort of taking from people's health systems, from aged care systems, from childcare systems, from disability care. And certainly in Australia, there have been multiple scandals really about the kind of care that people get under those privatized systems. And I think that opens up a way. And I've found, when I give talks and that, you can talk more about this is a critique of capitalism, because people are seeing what goes wrong. Our banks have been seen to be really ripping off their customers, and there have been royal commissions into that showing that. So I think that probably gives us some, but I do, the other thing that I think is certainly happening in a lot of Anglosphere countries is the kind of corporatization of universities and the wiping out of social science, the critical disciplines, and there's this sort of alliance between universities and the state, and that's involved the space industry. My university's got a huge grant to look at absurdly plants in space, for instance, but also massive investment from the defense industry to support this military alliance that we have with the US and the UK called AUKUS. And Australia, which is a small country, will be spending $368 billion on that over the next 30 years. And again, it's that militarization that I think Juliet was talking about. And here it's all done on a threat from China. There's this sort of whipping up of that, and the kind of, we need to prepare for a potential war and so on. So I think the militarization is really, really strong there. And I think the other thing is that, Juliet, I think you're right that, and this is really going on to the next one, but I just see on the campus that students are much more likely to be moving to the Socialist Alliance and some of the socialist groups on campus because they've been particularly radicalized, I think, through opposition to Gaza. That's brought people together. And as part of the encampments, the students have had kind of teach-ins. And I think they've really raised their own awareness in a huge way. And I really love seeing that around our campus, that there is that kind of embracing of left-wing ideas to a much greater extent than I've seen recently. It reminds me of the sort of 60s, 70s sort of period in campuses where there was that. And then at the same time, they're opposing the directions the universities are going as well. But yeah, so I think the kind of the explicitness of capitalism, and just look at the Venezuelan situation at the moment. If you wanted to see imperialism in action, it's there. So people are seeing it. It's not hidden, and I think that opens up space to be able to come in with the kind of critique that PHM has, and I think that's very important for us to think about how we can bring that into workplaces, teaching, all the health services where we are, because I think people can now see how that's operating in a way that maybe they couldn't 30 years ago. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so people become more receptive to our analysis because capitalism and imperialism has become so blatant, and the open critique of capitalism and anti-imperialism becomes more acceptable. So I think that's an important idea. You also talked about financialization of healthcare, about hedge funds, and positive and negative developments on the campus, commercialization of the universities, but also students, as Juliette also referred to the encampments, students becoming politicized while they're on the campus studying and but also protesting. So let's hear maybe first from Ubay. So we cannot take Palestine always last. So Ubay, let's come to you, and can you tell us in a nutshell what, according to you, are the most important challenges for today?
Well, I think what has also raised from the genocide in Gaza, the threat of techno-feudalism now, the use of AI in order to subjugate people. We are seeing this now. It was first instrumentalized in Gaza, but now I think this is a global danger for all of us, especially with the repression that is going against not just, of course, activists for Palestine, but we are seeing it already spread to other places, other activists. Now, at this moment, I feel that to promote basic equality among human beings, the basic call of the People's Health Movement, that health is a basic human right for all. I think those are going in a counter to what's being at this moment instrumentalized and being promoted by global capitalism and colonialism. At this moment, the responses, what we are talking about, for example, even using Zoom, which has an AI component, and I think that this issue we are becoming more and more aware of how our personal data is being used against us to manipulate us, and some people that do not have rights as Palestinians do not have the right to privacy, the right to life, all of these rights put together. The use and testing and development of this technology becomes possible because we are used as test subjects in this manner. As Palestinian prisoners were historically used as test subjects for Israeli drug companies that wanted to test new drugs. So in this regard, I think this is a main challenge we need to address, and we need to counter with the very basic idea that equality and basic human rights, of course, the forefront of it is the right to health, is a basic right to work.
So second generation is warning us about the dangers of big tech and data safety, but you do that very well and very convincingly. So Abhay, can we come to you as our last panelist on this, on the current challenges?
Yeah, so Wim, I won't just talk about the challenges. I think we all know what the challenges are. And I think the problem is that we don't have enough strategies.
Okay,
So
so
we keep,
let's go
yeah.
immediately
So
to
I
our.
think it's much more important for in PHM in general and for all of us to actually share concrete, working, practical strategies.
Okay.
That is where
So,
we are probably, I'm being self-critical, we are a bit weak. Our critiques are very extensive, very detailed, very elaborate, very incisive, but it doesn't translate. If it doesn't translate into ground level strategies, we'll remain at the level of critique. So I'll just share 3 or 4 which I have found in our experience in India to have been somewhat impactful. Number one, health movements are most effective when they stand on the shoulders of other movements. So health movements which have been able to uh, build upon or ally with existing mass movements. And I'm talking partly from our experiences in Maharashtra, but also in other places. It may be the land rights movement, it may be forest rights movements, it may be Dalit movements, it may be other, even movements like the science movement and the women's movement, where health has been brought in as an agenda for existing mass movements or major movements. That is where the health movement gets significantly strengthened and carried forward. This is number one. Number two is that the health movement needs to walk on 2 legs. It does walk on 2 legs always. And that is on one hand, the critique, and on the other hand, presenting very, very sharp and, effectively appealing alternatives. So in Hindi, we have this slogan called Sangharsh or Nirman, which means struggle and create, struggle and present alternatives, both together. And these are organically linked with each other. And I'm pretty sure might be doing this in different ways in our practice, but it's good to have this as an explicitly articulated strategy. We have seen, for example, when we started doing community-based monitoring of public health services, immediately the question came up, we are presenting the problems. What about the solutions? So then involving communities in also suggesting the solutions and how to strengthen public health services while making them accountable became the logical next step. And similarly, not only alternatives at the level of policy, but also alternatives at the level of how to make public health services function better for people in real lives, not just as an abstract concept. I think that's very important. So uniting the critique and the alternatives is the second strategy. A third is basically, and I like to be a little self-critical here, is that the health movement essentially functions at 2 levels, very broadly speaking. So one is what I will call critique and analysis and alliance building. So we have good critiques, we share these critiques, we come together, we build some kind of common platforms, and this is very important. This is the core or a very important level. But the second level, which is of mass mobilization, which is of popular mobilization around health rights, around concrete health demands. If that is not strong enough, then we'll remain a group of critics who have very good quality critiques, and we may even come together and form a little larger group, but we will not become a people's health movement in the genuine sense. Where people are actually centrally involved. Now, this is tough. It's easy to say, but very difficult to do. And it's not enough just to write this in documents. So we have to see where actually we have to learn from where actually people on a large scale have been mobilized around health issues and learn from that and then strengthen that and ally with that. I don't have the time to go into examples, but I can tell you it is something we in some scale. And now the anti-privatization struggles, which we are seeing in different parts of India, is one example of that. So definitely, and to connect the 2 levels, the analysis and alliance building level and the mass mobilization level, is the critical role of communication, popular education, awareness building, and narrative building. So if we can translate our well conceptualized critiques into simple, popular, appealing narratives, then it can significantly contribute to grassroots level mobilization also. Otherwise, there's a risk of its remaining limited to a certain kind of circle of whatever we can say more sort of knowledgeable activists and not. And the fourth strategy, which we are now developing in some areas, and we're also exploring this in the National Convention, is health worker community alliances on the ground and against privatization, for reclaiming public services, and also for building a more reclaiming public health services in some form, so that the problems of health workers, frontline health workers, and the problems of people who are trying to access public health services, bridges built between these two, and there is some sort of a joint front. And we are actually trying to build this also. So these are just four sort of examples of strategies. There are many more, which probably we need to discuss in PHM more. Otherwise, we are just remaining at the level of critique and not having enough strategies to deal with this situation. Thanks.
Thank you. So that's very, very relevant indeed. Health worker community alliances, analysis, but also popular mobilization, struggle and create. That's what I remember as the catchphrase for the second strategy, and that our movements, the health movement, should stand on the shoulder of the mass movements. And with this forward-looking comments up high, you actually made already the bridge to our third round that's going to be introduced by Zaina. So Zaina, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Wim. Thank you so much, and thanks for very insightful interventions. I think we're going to give it another chance with Miguel for the videos. Miguel,
Thank you,
let's
Zaina.
start.
I'm going to try now. Yeah, thank
Yes,
you. I'm going to try
please.
now.
PHM Canada is very happy to celebrate
El MSP
25
Canadá
years
está
of
muy
being
feliz
part
de
of this
celebrar
global
25
movement
años de ser
for
parte
better
de este
health,
movimiento
here
global
at home
para
and
la
abroad.
salud aquí
As health
en casa
activists,
y
we
en
have
todo el
learned a
mundo.
great
Como
deal
activistas
about
de la
the health
salud hemos
world
aprendido
and
mucho
solidarity
sobre el
as a way
poder de
of
la
moving
gente y la
towards
solidaridad
health for all.
para poder
Et
avanzar
dans ces
hacia la salud
dernières
para todos y
années,
todas.
nous avons pu
En
collaborer
los
avec
últimos
nos
años hemos podido
camarades à
colaborar
travers le monde.
con los camaradas
Por
y las camaradas de todo el
ejemplo, al
mundo.
colaborar con las
For
luchas en
instance,
América Latina,
when
hemos
we
aprendido
collaborated
a
with the
través de
different
los
struggles in
movimientos
Latin America,
por la
we were
salud
able
de
to
los
learn,
pueblos lo que
thanks to
significa trabajar
PHM,
en
what it
verde de la
means
solidaridad,
to
dando
work
reparar
with
lo que es
solidarity.
nuestra
And we
responsabilidad
learned
cuando se nos
that
pide.
it's our
Quand on nous
responsibility
demande to work has also led us to
Nuestro
collaborate
trabajo
with other organizations and
interactivo también
colleagues
nos ha
in
permitido
Europe and
trabajar
Africa
con
to put
otras
on a
organizaciones de
health
Europa y
forum
África
and tribunal whose work
para
continues to
crear
be a network of
la
people
audiencia y el
addressing
tribunal
corporate improvement
del
for
MSP,
the health
que
implications
dont le
of
travail continue
extractivism.
à construire des réseaux de peuples
Nous
abordant
avons
de
aussi
l'impunité.
participé à
también hemos
nombreuses
participado
initiatives avec
en
nos
diferentes
partenaires en
iniciativas
Europe,
con
aux États-Unis
asociados
et
en
ailleurs
Europa,
en
Estados
Europa,
Unidos
Estados
y en otros
Unidos
países
para
para
contre
movilizar
movilizar
la
a los
privatisation
movimientos
et la
contra la
marchandisation des
privatización
soins de
y la
santé.
mercantilización de
Ahora
los cuidados de
también
la salud.
estamos disfrutando de la experiencia
Maintenant,
Now,
de
nous
trabajar
profitons
we are
aussi de
also enjoying the
l'expérience de
experience
travailler
of
avec nos
working
amis
with
de
Uganda
relaciones de
pour
intercambio
so that we
construire
can
des
build
rapports
exchange
d'échange
de nuestros
experiences and
et de
support
movimientos en temas de
experiences
soutien à
solidaridad
between
nos
our
con
en
movements
lesbianas
when it
question
comes to
de
solidarity
y
solidarité
with
bisexual,
avec les
lesbians,
lesbiennes, gays,
bisexuals,
bisexuels,
trans and
transgenres
queer
et
people.
queer.
enfoque con nuestros camaradas
Our
del
focus
Corea del Sur
with our
es la
Avec nos
comrades
camarades de la Corée du Sud
South
et
Korea is
l'anti-militarisation.
But the
anti-militarization,
most important thing we have learned over
but
time is the
Mais le
importance
plus
pero
of
lo más
important que nous avons
people to
importante
appris est
es
people,
la
l'importance
importancia
grassroots,
de
construire
authentic
construir
relationships of
grupos de
friendship and
bases y
support
des
from the ground
rapports
up
relaciones
to make
auténticas
truly global
de
de
movements
amitié et
amistad
de
desde
for
las
soutien
health
avec
bases
les
justice,
para
gens
que
health for all,
los
pour
movimientos
faire
trabajen
une
para la
all of
salud
us.
y la
vraiment
And
justicia.
we
globale pour la
at
santé
Salud
PHM
para
publique
todos y
Canada
todas.
are
Y
proud
et la
nosotros en
santé
el
pour nous
MPS
tous, bien
Canadá
of
estamos
ici de
orgullosos
PHM.
l'Écosse
de
et nous ici à
estar aquí con
PHM nous sommes
ustedes.
très fiers
Hola a
de
todos,
partie de cela.
amigos del MSP de todo el
Bonjour,
mundo. Vamos a hablar
très
del
bon de
MSP
parler de
en
PHM,
Australia.
France, en Australie.
Uno de los
L'un des points
centros
focaux
ha
a
sido
été
la
la
salud
santé,
de los pueblos indígenas,
la santé autochtone
porque
ou les
suelen
peuples
tener
autochtones
un estado de
ont une pire
salud mucho
santé
peor que
que
el
les
resto de
autochtoniens.
Australia
Alors, nous
y
nous
nos
sommes
hemos
concentrés
centrado en
dans
eso para
cela
que tengan
et
acceso a los servicios de
besoin de
salud y esto ha sido muy
développer
emocionante.
la
El último
santé
año el
primaire et les
MSP
services
también
de
se ha
santé
centrado
primaire,
mucho en
ce qui a
Palestina.
été très très intéressant. La PHM ose à se concentrer
Creemos que, por
aussi en
supuesto, Palestina debe
Palestine
estar
et en
libre. Y también en
Australie
Australia
s'il
tenemos
y a
una
cette
alianza
alliance
militar
militaire
y que estamos intentando
entre l'Australie,
enfrentar
les Royaumes-Unis et
entre
les
Australia
États-Unis qui
y
s'appelle AUKUS.
el Reino
Nous
Unido
avons
y Estados
lutté
Unidos, así que
contre
estamos haciendo
cela
campañas en contra de eso.
à travers la militarisation de l'éducation dans notre État, en
Esto ha sido
Australie du
maravilloso,
Sud.
este trabajo.
Nous allons
Vamos
célébrer
a
le
celebrar el
27e
25
anniversaire de
aniversario aquí en
l'Australie
Australia
et la
y lo
manière dont nous le
hacemos
faisons est à
lanzando
travers
una
une
organización
organisation
de,
de
miembros
membres
del MSP y vamos a hacer una
PHM et nous
reunión en
lançons.
febrero.
Nous aurons une
Esperamos
réunion
hacer
Zoom
que la
très
red
importante en
crezca
février, mais nous espérons
y
grandir les
Australia
réseaux beaucoup plus
participa
grands.
de las asambleas
Et donc, nous
y a veces
croyons que nous
sentimos que
sommes en
quizás hemos
arrière dans plusieurs
retrocedido en muchos
manières
sentidos en lo que
par
respecta al
rapport à la
neoliberalismo
santé primaire
y
en
también
termes
las
de
instituciones de las
néolibéralisme.
universidades.
Nous
Vamos a
croyons
seguir
qu'il y a
luchando por la
plus
salud para
d'attaques à
todos
nos
y todas.
institutions et
Muchas gracias.
universités.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Angelina Jara.
Good
Estoy
afternoon, my
saludando
name
en
is
nombre
Angelina
de Fundación
Jara.
Educación Popular y
I am
Salud
speaking
EPES
on
en Santiago de
behalf
Chile, al
of
movimiento por la salud de
my
los pueblos,
organization in Santiago de
MSP,
Chile.
en su aniversario
These
número
are we send
25.
greetings to the PHM
Tenemos
to
tremenda
PHM
admiración
on
por todo lo
their
que se ha
25th
realizado.
anniversary.
Queremos
We
seguir
admire what
tejiendo redes con ustedes.
has been done,
Sabemos
and
el
we want to
tremendo
continue
trabajo que han
working with you,
hecho
creating
en
networks.
cuanto a
We
los
know the
derechos y
great
la
work that you
salud
have done
en la región y a nivel
regarding
global.
health
Esperamos seguir
rights in the region
fortaleciendo los
and in all the
vínculos,
world, and we hope
manteniendo
to
acciones
continue
articuladas,
strengthening
encontrándonos,
our
reflexionando y
relationship
buscando nuevas
and to
alternativas
continue
a este
meeting,
modelo
analyzing,
que nos
reflecting,
oprime y
and
que nos
finding
quita derechos.
alternatives to this model that
Muy,
oppresses
muy
us and
feliz
violates our
aniversario.
rights. I
Les
wish
mandamos
you a very happy
nuestro cariño
anniversary,
desde Santiago de
and we
Chile. Un
send
abrazo
you
grande.
our love from Chile.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Thank you for very valuable videos that highlight a very glimpse of the efforts, but very happy to celebrate our 25 years. And we also know that two of our comrades also were on the Sumud flotilla that went to Palestine and did the big breakthrough. That was one of our latest interventions. I'm going to jump to round 3. Also to hear from our panelists how to strengthen the PHM collective voice, solidarity mechanisms that Abai also tapped on, internationalist commitments, the actions, campaigns, and collaborations that we should pursue moving forward. What are the things that you believe were really valuable and that we really need to proceed efforts on? What are the initiatives that you think we shouldn't allocate much time into it? And what are concrete suggestions or aspirations of new directives forward for the movement so that all the effort is built on? So we'll start with our dear friend. We don't want to keep you very long. I know it's very late at your place, but great to
No,
hear
it's
from
okay. I feel quite awake. It's very inspiring to hear everything, so that's good. Well, look, first of all, just a few thoughts about PHM. One of the issues we're always grappling with is how do we get solidarity fundraising going? And we've never done that very well. And I wonder, maybe some of our second generations activists can think about how we might do that. And, we've got 84 people online. Maybe one of them is a superb fundraiser, but we've never had that, and it would be great. And while we don't want tide money, but sometimes it's really good if our steering council can meet. So that's fantastic. The other thing is, how do we get more links between us globally through the regions and the countries? And I think we need to think of how we could do that. Being creative about, should we have a sort of PHM drop-in social Zoom once a month when people can just come and share what they're doing? No agenda, people just talk about what they're doing, get to know each other. I would say have a glass of wine, but the time zones, either bring your coffee or your wine. But we just say, okay, if you can come on the month, we have it the same time. We try and get a time zone where we suit as many people as possible, or have 2 time zones if necessary. But that's just about building our solidarity within our movement. And because, we're very constrained, we're not having many face-to-face meetings. So that's one suggestion. Maybe we could do that. And I agree entirely with what Abbe said about how we have to build with existing movements. But I think that, while on the one hand, I think, the terribleness of what's happening with capitalism at the moment and all the horrible things that are happening around the world has opened up a gate. There's also a lot of false consciousness. I mean, we only have to look at the MAGA movement to see that. So I think we need to think about that, how do we overcome that, and I do think maybe one of our big pushes in the next year, and it's kept coming up, is against privatisation, not just of health services, but of, you know, childcare, aged care, water supply, education, and so on. You know, I think maybe that would be something, because I think, you know, after 30 years of relentless privatisation, particularly, you know, in some countries, I think people are beginning, you know, people really do get that it hasn't delivered everything that it was meant to deliver, that in fact it's inequitable, it's cost people more, there's all sorts of scandals. So maybe privatisation. And of course the other big thing is lots of people I think have put in the chat is the climate. I mean, now we're at this situation where capitalism is going to bash up against climate change, and we're seeing that just in our region, about 2,000 people have died from flooding in the last couple of weeks in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Vietnam. As I speak, there's fires raging again on the east coast of Australia. In Canada, there's so many fires through this summer. I mean, we're just seeing, we're living now with the consequence. Here we have this appalling algal bloom that is killing millions of our fish, meaning that people can't fish our waters. And nobody knows how to deal with it because we're in uncharted waters in terms of system dynamics with this algal bloom. But we need to link up with movements like that. PHA members in Australia are quite active in Extinction Rebellion. But again, there's increasingly repressive governments that mean that you can't take some of the direct action that was happening. But I do think the alliance with the climate movement is really important because the impacts on health are increasingly evident, and the impacts on health systems, as people have said in the chat. And I think Vandana's just said we live in a gas chamber in Delhi, and that's true. And, you know, in Australia, we're going to routinely have temperatures in some areas going up to 50 degrees, which is, you know, it's just not, it's becoming unlivable. So, yeah, so can we find a way that we have some sort of a social catch-up, maybe even every 2 months, and as Wim said, coffee for some, wine for others, depends how it works, or lunch. Can we think about fundraising? Can we, you know, think about the alliances we build? But I think as people's alienation that David talked about with capitalism grows, then that's real opportunity for us to work with other movements in the way that Abe said.
Thank you so much, Fran. Thank you for very valuable input. Just conscious of the time, if you don't mind to give us 5 to 10 extra minutes, and asking the panelists if we can commit to the 3 minutes intervention. So next, Juliette, what are your suggestions?
Yeah, thanks so much, and really resonate with Fran Abe. Okay. So I had a few thoughts. So one, I really feel PHM in general is part, like, I see the socialist movement in general as like one global liberation movement for many issues. And I feel we are also part of that, and that we should, on one hand, I think that was already mentioned before, join where the fire is, usually on a local level, because there we can cross struggle, and on the other hand add there our own speciality, which is health and healthcare, and how these struggles are actually very much alive. So be it militarization, privatization, housing, climate, we can connect to where the people are already organizing, because people are already organizing and also work for each other's causes, I would say. The second thing, I think, generally social change, I always think in these 3 steps. So one is dreaming of another world, making the other world, and then challenging power. And in the first one, I think sometimes we can be more unconventional and more ourselves, and be just as you are. We don't have to recreate the powerful people. We are the people, and we are ourselves. And there's thing in particular I think is important, and as language, I think we should use more disruptive language, and I think sometimes we do. So for example, what I really like is there are some people in Europe that call the migration policies we have the policies of death, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're pushing people over the Mediterranean Ocean and killing them. But like in general politics, it's called migration policies. So to be more explicit, to show the absurdity of the world. Or it can also be positive words like abundance. Like there's enough for everyone. Were it not that a very few amount of people, they're taking everything. So I really like to think about words that make us dream and that challenge our common conceptions. The second thing is, well, disrupting power. I think our analysis again is good, but how much like disrupting action are we actually undertaking? And by that I mean strike, boycotts, blockades, encampments, occupations. I think that's a way also, maybe that's also more because I'm in the capitalist core and that's kind of my task to disrupt the powers that are ongoing. But I think that's also a way to challenge the system. And then lastly, well, the community level change. So I think if we want to take people along, we have also to show that we can recreate another world. Examples in Europe, I think, are the mutual aid clinics that we have, medicine for the people, that show that care can be provided for everyone and that we can think of different ways and that people are ready to realize the health for all. And then maybe lastly, and that's a bit what Fran was also talking about, is I think, that inside we are, I think for me it also feels like a family, and I think that that's also something we need to encourage, because it's not always easy to stand up against the world, and that together we find this courage and this hope. So I think it's a great idea to find opportunities to meet, to hear a story from of someone else around on another place in the world that's struggling just as you are, to be inspired by them, to show also our own successes. Like there's so many people struggling for health and so many things are being realized, and I think sometimes we don't know how much we're actually creating. That's like there's a new PHM circle, that we have won a social fight, that we have I don't know, blocked in Rotterdam, we blocked the harbor here so that there were no arms going to Israel for one day. It's small, but like it's I think it's inspiring. And also on external communication, I think we can do much better. When we look at our external communication, it seems we're not the big movement that we are, but we are huge and we did so much. So I think that's maybe something the next generation can also help with. And lastly, I really love this quote. It's from a sociologist from my city. He said, there's three things fascists don't have and we have, and that's intellect, that's love, and that's joy. And I feel that's also something we can be really proud about. We're the people, we love life, and it's in our love for life that we will stand up. And that's it sounds cheesy to talk about love, but for me, that's what we are doing. We are life and we are love. And that's something I would continue kind of stay in our movement and also to foster that.
Thank you, Juliette. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Abai, if you can limit it to 2 minutes for your suggestions.
Okay.
Okay, I
Thanks.
have prepared for 3 minutes.
Bye. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'll just focus on one point, and that is that today's struggle for health is indivisible from the struggle for democracy. Modern public health is actually a daughter of democracy, modern democracy. And public health systems everywhere since the mid-19th century actually emerged in the background of emergence of through a very complex and contested process of democracy itself. So today, when democracy is being attacked everywhere, it's being constricted, people are being divided, they are being distracted, they are being disillusioned, and they're being dominated. And this is what we have to tackle on the ground while we want to expand the health movement, while also aligning ourselves with the emerging struggles to defend and expand democracy. I think this is the horizon that we need to explicitly discuss within PHM. It's a new scenario. It's a very complex and difficult scenario, but there is a way forward. We need to be basically look at how to. So one point I'd like to emphasize is that with each effort to roll back democratic rights, each effort at hyper centralization, each effort by the ruling classes to control, new spaces also open up. Existing spaces are pushed back, but certain new spaces emerge, which we have to look for carefully. They're not automatic. I'll give you 3 examples. With hyper centralization, we are seeing that because the state is trying to control everything from the top, decentralized, local political representatives, panchayats, they are seeing that their powers are being taken away actually. So yeah, they potentially are willing to be aligned with a democratic kind of movement around health or other issues. Secondly, with exclusion, because increasing exclusion and securitization, where more and more people are being excluded from public services on different grounds, including the so-called digital dictatorship. This is creating significant amount of discontent and groups which are now actually willing to stand up and demand, better services, public services, health services. And the third is with privatization, aggressive privatization, which is closely aligned to the, entire authoritarian regime, the pro-corporate regime, which we call corporate Raj in India. With this aggressive privatization, all those people who are working within public health systems at multiple levels are also feeling uncomfortable, and they can see that their jobs are on the line. So therefore, new opportunities and spaces are also opening up, despite the fact that, of course, we are facing a very difficult situation. So what are the grounds for hope? I'd conclude with this. And quoting Gramsci with a little modification, realism of the intelligence and optimism of the will. Those who are in power today, the authoritarian regimes, they don't have solutions. They don't have any vision for the future. And they have almost nothing genuinely positive to offer. So, as Juliet also said, the democratic forces, the forces for people's health, definitely have, and their social roots are becoming increasingly unstable, which is why they have to rely on all kinds of strategies by dividing people and so on. So basically, I'll say that in this situation, we need to reconfigure our strategies to align with broader struggles for democracy. Positivity will win over negativity. Social bonding will win over hatred. And hope will win over fear. And that is the hope for the People's Health Movement.
Thank you so much, Abai. We'll go with Lauren, and then we close with Ubay Khitamu Hamis with Palestine. So, Lauren, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Zaina. So I think maybe I'll just focus on two things. The one is this idea of the digital and how it relates to health. And I think that's something for us to think about. So I really have more questions than solutions. But one, the digital in relation to trust and trust in health advice. I think how we communicate through online platforms has changed a lot. And I see it with, for example, older people in my family, younger people, the confusion around what kind of advice is real, what should be trusted. I think this is one thing to consider, but also to make the connection between the digital and the material base. So what we see in Congo, for example, the resource extractivism is not disconnected from the shift towards, AI and online health systems and so on and so forth. So really to make the connection to the fact that we are in a world that's advocating for a digital economy where water is being used to cool computers instead of to cook food, which is bizarre. So I think that's one thing for PHM to think about. I think the other thing to think about is we, in the wake of the Second World War, there were legal categories like asylum seeker, refugee that had status and authority. We're now living in a world where that's completely destroyed. And at the same time, in a world where people are being killed, the genocide in Palestine is the obvious example. We see people displaced in Sudan, in parts of Cameroon, parts of East Asia. It's, I think we're living in a context where we have to think seriously about what it means to make life when that distinction between citizen and non-citizen will become increasingly politicized. And also where our assumption that there is a kind of stable household or stable nuclear family that people can turn to for support is completely mistaken. I think entire groups of people have lost families, households, communities, and how do you make health in a context that is so ruined? So I think there are challenges around migration policies, borders, and reparations, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Ubay?
I think most important, thank you, Zena. I think the most important way for us to move forward is how we organize together. I think this is the decisive factor will be how we organize to solve mutual problems, how we organize to put issues that actually generate what is called today a value chain or a chain of events that most probably have started in the global north countries, and how we connect it to the companies, the forces, the politicians that are behind it in order to have some sort of accountability, some sort of measure. I think for us on how to organize together, I think this is the main challenge to grow the movement, to attract new, younger voices in it, and to be able to organize this kind of challenge. I agree that democracy, the fight for democracy is integrated into our struggles, but I also see it as a fight for life, what we are doing at this moment. What techno-capitalism is promising all of us is a new form of slavery, 21st century slavery. And I think this kind of slavery, the natural instinct of people is to rise against it. And PHM offers a unique space among other social movements, of course, on how to organize. And the second connection is how to organize with other social movements like La Via Campesina, like workers' movements, unions, etc., in order to have this fight collectively. Many of the issues we are dealing with also intersect with these other global social movements.
Thank you, Obai. Thank you so much. I saw just Vicente Sedeno wants to speak from Ecuador and Peru. If you can just restrict it to 1 minute, and then we're closing with Maria Zuringa. Vicente Sedeno, are you happy to provide a 1 minute intervention? Okay, so if this is not working, Maria, the closing words are for you. Our dear Maria from the founders, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Hello, Maria.
Hello.
Let me know when you want me to share the video, okay?
Okay, I will introduce that and then we'll go to the video.
Okay, thank you.
This section is to honor our founders. And before we show the video, I want to say that in these last few weeks, we have celebrated the 50th anniversary of our network here in Mesoamerica, which is part of the People's Health Movement. And I have been dealing with how to recognize all the people who had so much that they contributed to what we are today. It was really inspiring to hear this panel and to hear David and all of you express what you want to the movement to be in the future. As a grandmother of the movement, I want to say that before recognizing the founders, I want to recognize all the people who are the unsung heroes of our movement, people who are with us today, but also people who have left us through many different situations that people have suffered over the years. So now I'll ask Miguel to show the first video where we will take a look at things that have happened over the last 25 years and then recognize the founders who have departed from us and those who are with us today. And then we'll now have another special recognition of one of our other people. Okay? Miguel?
Miguel.
Thank you, Miguel. I hope that all of you are filled with this energy of our ancestors and our living founders. And I want to introduce briefly, I want to recognize a special person. Sister Annie Wiebe is a Lebanese American. She was a nurse and a teacher. She spent many years in Brazil. She came and lived 15 years and worked in the war zone in Nicaragua during the 80s, and then went back to Brazil. And a couple of years ago, she returned to the United States. Annie Wiebe is 101 years old, and she's active today in the work against what the Immigration Service is doing to the people in the United States. And she is one of the most active people in Palestinian solidarity that I know. Every single Saturday, she's on the street. Here's a little video that we want to share with you about Sister
Vidéo que
Annie.
nous voulions partager sur sœur Annie.
Thank you all very much. Just to close, I want to say Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. Roman, do you want to add anything before we close?
Sí, muchas gracias, Sina, por
Yes, thank you so much, Zaina, for having coordinated this amazing panel together with Wim. Thank you to Maria also for honoring our great comrades from the People's Health Movement. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you so much. We suffered a bit with the first video, but we overcame it, and we are very happy to have been able to, well, to host this very important event commemorating the 25th years of PHM. So we are inspired in our struggles, in our ideals, in the theory, in the critique to what we resist, which is capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, and patriarchy. And of course, racism, planetary racism. They are the enemies of the health of our peoples. So we'll keep on fighting, but the biggest source of inspiration in these struggles is to be hand in hand, together, hearts united, minds united with our struggling, fighting peoples, next to the workers, men and women, exploited of the world, next to the indigenous peoples who resist colonialism, next to women who fight for their freedom against patriarchy, next to the young, the students, fishermen and fisherwomen, peasants of the world. They are our inspiration. They are the source of our inspiration and struggles, and we dedicate our lives to building a world in which human and planetary health can be a possibility. So, viva People's Health Movement, long live People's Health Movement, and long live the struggles of the Palestinian people who have inspired us to build a new humanity and who show us that we can and will have victories. So long live People's Health Movement.
Happy 25 years, and for more 25 years. La lucha continúa. Thank you. Viva! Photo.
Let's take a picture.
Let's take a picture, all of us.
Sí, una foto. Así es, los que todavía estamos, 70 personas, podemos una foto
70
todos con
people.
las
Let's take
cámaras,
a
compañeras,
picture. Turn on
compañeros,
your
en la forma en
cameras.
que estemos para
Raise
esa
your
foto que
hand.
necesitamos de conmemoración
However
de los
you
25
can. We want
años
to
de
have a
PHM.
picture to commemorate these 25 years of PHM.
Abren sus cámaras.
Abran
Please
las
turn on your
cámaras, por
Turn on
cameras.
your
favor.
cameras for this photo.
Full camera. And please put
Cheese.
your hands in this way. PHN is alive. PHN will continue struggling. Our struggle is our future.
Viva la lucha.
The right to hell will
Thank
be
you.
Amandla,
and hell
Amandla.
will be reality as well.
La lucha
So,
continúa.
comrades,
La lucha.
La lucha
Lucha
continúa.
continua.
la lucha continúa. Long life to PHM.
La lucha continúa.
Viva PHM.
La lucha continúa.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Special thanks to our interpreters, our team of interpreters. Without their help, this meeting is much better to communicate. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here with us.
Gracias a los intérpretes, a las
Special thanks to them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye.
Vim, Roman,
Thank you.
Maria, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now.
Happy birthday,
Thank
Serena.
you.
Serena,
Thank
Gracias.
you.
please
Thank
one
you.
play. Serena, please hold one play.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday,
A
Serena.
happy birthday today. Yes.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you so
birthday.
much.
Bye.
Happy birthday.
Bye.
Bye,
Happy birthday. Bye.
Happy birthday.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Happy birthday.
Bye, comrades.
Happy birthday.
Adiós, adiós.
Felicidades.
Buen año. Buen año 2026. Nos volvemos a ver.
Nos volvemos a
Have a
ver.
great new year. We'll see each other again in 2026.
Gracias. Estoy muy
Thank
feliz
you.
de
I'm so happy
compartir con
to
ustedes.
share with
Gracias,
you.
María.
Thank you, Maria.
Agradezco a Ricardo Rodríguez.
Ah,
Le envío la invitación.
Bye bye.
ya ves.
Adiós. Saludos. Feliz
Adiós,
año.
adiós.
Adiós. Adiós.
Bye.
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 Chao, pura vida.
Chao.
Saludos.
Saludos.
Hola. Saludos. Ven. A ver.
Ahí nomás ve. En la foto, si alcancé, dice la foto al menos.
Yo no sé si alcancé la foto.
I don't know if I was in the
Claro que
picture.
sí, alcanzaste la foto.
Allá.
Yes, you were.
Eres como don Ramón, llega cuando ya se van. Ese tipo no tenía internet porque no había pagado a ese señor y recién pagó y ahí se pudo meter.
Ah.
Ahí mandó la cuenta que había pagado recién.